And we'd like to welcome in our guest now. We have Clarence McKee. Oh, yeah, time for a handshake. Clarence McKee's a Newsmax insider. Also, he's the president of McKee Communications, Inc. Also, we have Tom Whatley with us, retired police detective. Tom, I'll spare you the handshake, the reach across, but it's great to have you guys here with us. And Miranda sticking around, too. We heard Kellyanne Conway, but I want to talk about what she was mentioning. Donald Trump yesterday on the stump in Colorado, a state that a lot of folks would say is out of reach for him, but he was talking about the quote-unquote rigged system. Take a listen.
But they even want to try and rig the election at the polling booths where so many cities are corrupt, and you see that. And voter fraud is all too common. And then they criticize us for saying that.
Clarence, what is your take on what you heard Mr. Trump say?
I remember Bernie Sanders talking about a rigged system for the wealthy. I remember Senator Elizabeth Warren saying this is a rigged system. So generally speaking, there are a lot of people who believe that the system is rigged, that the media is rigged. But in terms of the polling place, you're looking at a guy who was a poll watcher for Republicans in Southside Chicago, where you were at the risk of your life standing there for 12 hours. I think in a close election, like in Florida, in certain states, there could be some games being played. Could be. For example, 530 votes in Florida. Now, if you take that and you had some funny games being played, for example, in Philadelphia when the Black Panthers were standing there like this and intimidating people, that could happen. Widespread, many states, no. Because you have down ballot candidates looking at the polls. But it's not something that's totally out of the picture in a very close election at all.
I think where some people get uncomfortable, though, is you bring up some good points. There are issues, there have been specific examples, as in Philadelphia with the Black Panther Party. Tom, you've run in a lot of municipal, well, maybe not a lot, but you've run in more than one municipal election before.
Yes.
You spent a lot of time at the polls watching these polls.
Sure have, yeah.
Is it the issue that there is, attempted a theft of elections here, or is that maybe it's just these elections need to be run a little bit better? We're talking about volunteers many times. They're retirees, and they are operating this equipment, and they do it once every 2 years. So that's something else that we have to be concerned about.
Well, I've sat through recounts where there were 42,000 votes cast for a particular seat in this county, and it came down to 42 votes. Right. But you had representatives from each party standing there for hours on end watching the recounts. Now in Florida, we're very fortunate because we can actually look at a physical recount.
We have the paper trail.
We have the paper trail. There are some states it's all electronic. And that's where I have a problem, is where it's all electronic and you don't have that ability to hold a piece of paper and verify. I know people are now taking their iPhones in there and taking pictures of their vote. And
I think one positive of this is that the attention to this has been elevated. So people, Democrats, Republicans are going to go to these polls, and especially in these swing counties, where it could come down to just a couple hundred votes. There will be lawyers in those poll locations. They will be there at the supervisor of elections office when the ballots come in to be tallied. The question, though, that I would pose to Donald Trump as they keep to gin this up a little bit, you look at Ohio, you look at Florida, the secretaries of state in those states are Republicans. They have to certify these elections.
Sure.
Do they not,
Yes,
Clarence?
yes. But here's the other issue. You don't know what's going on in terms of, they talk about voter frauds, voter ID. The Democrats are really pushing to throw out the voter ID laws.
Right.
You have a driver's license, you have to show it at the airport. But they're trying to overturn most of our voter ID laws in the states. The Veritas tapes that came out the other day, hidden cameras talking about we have to get more Hispanics registered, the millions coming into the country illegally, the Democratic Party will benefit by getting them registered to vote. So there are a lot of things going on that
there are
right
things
under the cover. So the supervisor of elections in Palm Beach County, Broward County, or in New York wouldn't be involved in that, but the operatives hired by the parties could be. It's a distinct possibility, and you can't throw it out the window.
We shouldn't throw it out the window, no.
No, and a lot of people think that a Morning Consult political poll shows that 73% of registered Republican voters think that the election could be rigged against Donald Trump. Interesting enough, just 17% of registered Democrats feel the same way.
They're doing the rigging. The 17% of the Democrats.
Do you agree with that?
well, I think they're looking at the polls. If Donald Trump was leading by 52%,
Would he think this is rigged?
I think Hillary's people would say it's rigged.
Right. Well, I mean, and he did. He boasted about the polls for months.
Right.
Do you think it would be better for Donald Trump if he were able to draw that line, Clarence, just like you did, between these incidents of, isolated incidents of voter fraud that can potentially tip the needle in Trump's favor or Hillary's favor, but also talk about the different rigged system, the same one that Bernie Sanders was talking about, because that's what Americans are feeling. And I worry if they lump it all into one big mound of a rigged system, that if this election is contested, what's going to come November 9th? How bad is it going to get?
I think that's just what Hillary wants them to talk about, rigged elections.
You think so?
Get off of this stuff and get back to issues, the economy, Obamacare. In Pennsylvania, the premiums are going up 33%.
Obamacare is a huge issue right now. You don't hear Trump
talking about.
talking
That's what we should talk
about.
about. Not
Now,
rigged
why would she
elections.
want that, though?
Oh, because it's a red herring. No one believes it.
Well, obviously, 73% of registered Republican voters believe it.
But they're not the ones who are out here revving up the battles for Hillary.
See, but I
folks
would think it
don't
would
want her.
work more in her favor to have him talk about the issues.
I think
The issues would kill her.
I think some
She has no
Republicans.
interest.
I think some Republicans were optimistic yesterday when Donald Trump started talking about draining the swamp. And
That's good.
And
That's
I think for Republicans who are nervous, who have not yet jumped off of the Trump train, they saw that as a sign of hope for this debate.
Democrats and Republicans both want to see term limits. I mean, that the numbers are there. It supports it. So, when you've got a guy that does 42 years in the Congress, well, that's a clue.
Exactly.
All right, well, we're going to welcome in our first caller. We got Rick from Buckeye, Arizona, who's calling in. Rick, what are you looking forward to hearing during the debate tonight?
Well, I want Donald to stay on message. He's got the better message out there, and if he just stays there and he needs to stay on offense tonight, I think we've got a win here tonight.
All right. Well, when you talk about offense, and I want to open this up to the panel as well. Do you want to hear Donald Trump hit the Clinton family for what happened in the past? We've heard reports now about a repeat of what happened at the last debate. There might be some blockbuster right beforehand that's not necessarily on the issues, on the economy, on fighting ISIS or those issues, but it might deal with personal matters. Is that fair game? Do you want to hear about that tonight?
No, I don't. I want to stick with ISIS, the security of our country, for the fight for the good of our country. These are things we need to hear about. These are things that should be important to most Americans. And, if this election should not be about sex issues with Bill Clinton or Trump or, whoever. Let's stick with the issues.
All right. Anybody else want to ask Rick a question before?
Rick, you're absolutely right. Stay focused, stay on message, talk about the corruption. You've got all these tapes talking about the FBI and how the State Department is trying to bribe the FBI. You've got situations where they're talking about Catholics in a derogatory manner.
Yes, that's
to the extent where the Cardinal in New York says it's horrible that they did that. All these little issues he could bring up, all of these things, but he won't do it. Corrupt the FBI, corrupt the Department of Justice, corrupt the IRS. It's like we're on the verge of having a banana republic, the media joining in, like in Pravda is for Putin, and he ought to talk about that.
I think he does need to talk
other
about
things.
ISIS, Tom, don't you? I mean, especially with the rise of ISIS since Obama has been in office.
Yes.
I do, and because you have Chris Wallace as the moderator tonight. Now, he is what in my mind, I call a true journalist.
I agree.
He's the real deal. He's not like the other folks. Where
He
it
did
was
not go easy on Trump during
but he's not going to go easy on Hillary either. And I think he's going to try and be fair and square, but he's going to hit them both hard on topics, and he's going to control, I think, the topics. I think he's going to let them wander off because, they tend to pivot with out of the question and go into another topic because they've got to get it in. I mean, their managers say you have to get this in, so they're going to pivot. So I think he's going to control that tightly tonight.
We've also heard that he doesn't want to be the so-called fact checker.
Right.
Oh, Candy Crowley, you mean?
Yeah.
Well,
Exactly.
nobody wants to be the
Exactly.
incorrect fact checker,
Right. So, do you think that's wise for him?
Exactly. Just let the opponent bring up the mistakes of their opponent. I don't think the moderators should get involved in that unless there's something really, really blatant.
Well, she won the coin toss tonight, so she'll get the first question.
The first question. It would be nice if the moderators would kind of blend into the background the way Jim Lair used to do, the way the umpires do at baseball games, or at least at a well-officiated baseball
Lincoln
game.
Douglas debate.
Lincoln Douglas debate. I don't know. Could we stand the
long?
hours? Could the candidates stay? Could the candidates stand up that long? We got much more to come.
Yes, we do.
We're going to talk more about the rigged election and some of these polls out there. Poll numbers all over the place. We're going to talk about one poll which shows Donald Trump in the lead. Do you believe the polls? That's one of the questions we'd like to ask you. You can call in and reach us. 1-877-NEWSMAX is how you can reach us on the phone. And also stay tuned. We've got continuing coverage, preview of the debate ahead, plus post-debate analysis. Stay with us here at Newsmax TV. More to come.